I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
Today's talk is titled Embrace It All. One night, a wife found her husband standing over their baby's crib. Silently, she watched him as he stood looking down at the sleeping infant. She saw on his face a mixture of emotions: disbelief, doubt, delight, amazement, and maybe a little skepticism. Touched by his unusual and deep emotion that it aroused in her, with eyes glistening, she slipped her arm around her husband. "A penny for your thoughts," she said. "It's amazing," he replied. "I just can't see how anybody can make a crib like that for only $46.50. Do you know, Diaz is a Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist. He recently revealed a secret that he had kept most of his life. He was raped when he was 8 by an adult he trusted. And he says that he really never recovered. He said, that S blank 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 cracked the planet of me in half. Diaz wrote in his blunt confession, more than being Dominican, more than being an immigrant, more even than being of African descent, my rape defined me. It was why he says he attempted suicide in high school, and why his 20s and 30s were a dance of denial. He says, real Dominican men, after all, aren't raped. He writes, and if I wasn't a real Dominican man, I wasn't anything. Diaz is now 49, and he's also honest enough to admit how many women he has hurt as a result. Scared of true intimacy, because he was forced to reveal his secret. Because of his lack of intimacy, he was forced to reveal his secret because it bothered him so much that he just realized, I have to admit this. I have to admit that this happened. He said, all this pain, I finally realized that I had to make this public. After looking at his experience, after feeling his feelings, after sharing it with his friends and his family, he said that when I admitted the truth, when I said what happened, I was finally free from old patterns. He's currently in therapy and in a stable relationship, and he has stopped lying to himself. He says, in Spanish, they say that when a child is born, it is given the light. Diaz says, and that's what it feels like to say the words, like I'm being given a second chance at the light. In the 28 years that I know that I've been on this spiritual path, I've come to see that the pain of perceived deficiency is an epidemic. that many of us have feelings of not being good enough. We have feelings of not being loved enough. True for you. And many of those feelings come from experiences or perceptions that we have of the past. And we can, believing those perceptions, get caught up in a trance to believe that we are unworthy or unlovable. Sometimes, like Junot Diaz, we can sometimes see ourselves as less than what we are. We can also be haunted by events of the past and give power to false self-perceptions in the present moment that take us out of the moment and taint our experience because we're believing something that's not true about ourselves based on an experience that happened in the past. I've seen it in my own life and in numerous others, and to some of you who wake up from the trance. Wake up and realize the truth of who you are. Much of what our ego hears and much of what our so-called other belief systems teach us that we're not worthy, that we must appeal to some source outside of ourselves to find the truth of who we are. Illusions. Because all that we need is what we have right here. Because we are perfect expressions of the divine, perfect expressions of God, of spirit, of life, of love, of joy, of peace. So I'm hoping that what we talk about today can be a breakthrough for you, to break through some of these false beliefs and false emotions that can sometimes hold us as slaves to things that aren't the truth. In order to flower, self-compassion depends on honest, direct contact with our own vulnerability. Compassion fully blooms and blossoms when we actively offer care to ourselves. Some of the things that I've been taught not to do in growing up. Yeah, and you too, I know. But we're going to change all that today. And so I hope that you use this process that we talk about today. It's not a simple one, but it's not horribly involved. In fact, I think it's wonderfully made. Edward de Bono, doctor, psychiatrist, a psychologist, and author, wrote, studies have shown that 90% of error thinking is due to error perception. If you can change your perception, you can change your emotion, and thus can lead to new ideas. In a sense, if we change our thinking, we can change our perception, we can change our emotion, and we can change our life. Lisa Kleypas, she's a romance author and wise person, says, we all know that being able to express deep emotion can literally save a person's life. And suppressing emotion can kill you both spiritually and physically. You know, often we're taught, don't feel that. Don't be with that. Because some of us are taught, and I think even there's malpractice happening in New Thought that says don't focus on things that you don't want to magnify. But sometimes when we feel something that's painful, we have to be with the feeling. We don't chase it away. It's like having a hurting child, which in a sense many of us are. When a child comes to us hurting, we don't spank it and push it away and tell that it's bad because it is feeling emotion. But we hold it and we love it. and we tell it that it's worthwhile. And this is the compassion that we get to share with ourselves so we can heal these deep-rooted, untrue emotions that we sometimes experience. As human beings, we do everything that we can to increase pleasure and reduce pain. Sometimes feeling our hurting emotions can feel painful. In negative emotions, we can sometimes want to push them away and not engage in them. We can do alcohol or drugs instead of feeling our emotions. So to help you all and myself, I've discovered this process that is called RAIN. It was coined about 20 years ago by Michelle McDonald. It's an easy-to-remember process for practicing mindfulness. So, RAIN. The steps in RAIN follow the acronym. So, RAIN is an acronym that incorporates the teachings of mindfulness and instructs us to recognize, to accept, to investigate, and non-identify with difficult emotions. And when we approach difficult emotions in this way, we can move them into workable, revealing experiences. And practicing RAIN can also prevent unhelpful responses such as excessive worrying or acting out. Anybody like to spend less time worrying? And so this process is really about how can we move ourselves to a calmer place, to be able to be more mindful and more present. So so there's the steps: recognize, accept, investigate, and non-identify. So the R stands for recognize. And the first step in dealing with a difficult emotion is to recognize when it's present. Oftentimes when a difficult emotion is present, I know I can tell that it's there because I feel stuck, right? I feel like I'm frozen in the moment and I don't want to, or feel like I can't move. Yeah? Anybody feel that way? And when we recognize it, we can ask ourselves, what am I feeling right now? What are my thoughts and my feelings and my emotion that has me stuck? And it's just about when we start to recognize, what happens is it automatically starts to dissipate. Because all of these things that show up for us is our spirit saying, pay attention. You get to learn something here. So just listen, recognize, oh, interesting, something's going on. I'm feeling some emotion. I'm feeling anger. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling powerless. I'm feeling afraid. And this is really about saying, oh, isn't that interesting? Instead of trying to push it away, getting angry, just to say, oh, I have a feeling. Yeah? Anybody ever have feelings like this? So this is really helping us to move our attention from the anxiousness and the anxiety of the moment to a place where we can be mindful and calm. And by the way, all of this is in my Walk Your Talk with all these steps, so you don't have to remember them. But remember that the R in RAIN stands for... Oh, good, okay. And the A in RAIN stands for accept, acknowledge, and allow. So when we have these feelings, when we have these emotions, just to accept it. To say, oh, okay, so this is what I'm feeling. Interesting, I'm feeling a little angry. So I can just accept that feeling and acknowledge it. And remember, we're not getting, the ego might say, well, you're giving power to it by acknowledging it. No, actually, the opposite is true. When we acknowledge it, it says, okay, I just wanted you to be aware. And just allow it to be. And really, this is really about loving yourself in the midst of it. And again, as you would love a child who came to you that was anxious or mad or angry. Just acknowledge that something is present. And just kind of go, oh yeah, oh, I see. Oh yes. I'm fearful. Oh yeah. I'm upset. Okay. So different, isn't it, than pushing it away, saying, oh no, I'm not feeling that way. And then, of course, what happens is it kind of seeps down. Have you ever noticed? And then at some point it goes, bloop, 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 and it comes up in a weird way when something totally unrelated is happening. All of a sudden, those feelings, that anger, that disappointment comes up again. Whereas if you just allow it to be, just be with it, then it too can relax. Viktor Frankl says, between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. And in this space lies our power and our freedom. So what he's reminding us is when we feel this emotion, is just to be with it and to recognize it. And I find it handy to take a breath, before reacting, right? And there's sort of a difference for me between reacting and responding, right? Responding is a choice. And when something happens and we get this rush of emotion, the ego's desire, the small me wants to go, rah, right? But if I can say, oh, this is what's happening, this is what I'm feeling, I can take a breath and say, I don't have to respond that way. Allowing creates a space that enables us to see more deeply into our being, which in turn awakens our caring and helps us to make wiser choices in life. And isn't that why we're here? That's really what I think, coming to Unity Church and learning these truths is all about, so that we can live fuller and happier lives, so that we can be present to the joy that's and the opportunity that's there in every moment. So allow, accept. And the I in RAIN stands for investigate. So after recognizing and allowing, and then we investigate. Okay, so what am I feeling in my body? I know if I get angry, I feel it here and here. And the body is saying, hello, Blaine, pay attention. Can you hear me? Can you feel me? And it's interesting if we can just go, oh, interesting, my body is reacting to what I'm experiencing. Not to say it's bad, but just to pay attention. Oh, interesting, I'm feeling this movement in my body. Wow, isn't that great? And so to just kind of welcome and be open to it rather than, again, pushing it away. And then the second thing we can look at are, what are my emotions? What is it that wants to emote from me? And just being aware and saying, oh, isn't that interesting? I'm anxious. I would really like to scream right now. Yeah. Ever been that way? And just, oh, interesting. I'm feeling like I'd like to express this emotion. Doesn't mean you have to. You get to choose. And the third thing that we can investigate is our thoughts. What am I thinking when I am feeling this emotion? I don't know about you, but I find that I have a lot of the same stories that play themselves out in my consciousness. Yeah, that these stories about not being good enough or not being loved, and I can find all these reasons of all these things that happened to me in the past that reinforce those emotions. And I like to ask myself, well, what is the story? What is the story that I'm telling myself? Recognizing that it's just a story. And so many of the stories that we think we experienced aren't even true. True for you? Right? But we have this running, and it feels like a mouse or a rat on what are those things that a treadmill, feeling the same old story over and over again. And so the idea is not to push it away, but just to recognize it. Once we recognize the story, then our little self says, okay, you heard the story. And so we don't have to keep repeating it. Poet Dorothy Hunt, in her book, she says, we need a heart space where everything that is welcome. And this is about, really welcoming everything that's going on with us. Like it's the great scientific experiment. That all these things are happening, and I can pay attention to them. And by paying attention to them, they automatically dissipate. I have lived with feelings of being unworthy and unloved most of my life. Anybody else? Yeah. I love that. Well, everybody but one person. We're doing great. I think you guys should be up here giving this lesson. It was about 10 years ago, and I realized and really started to pay attention, because what was happening for me was that I was finding myself in frequent situations that would mirror to me that I wasn't good enough, right? It seemed like everybody was screaming that at me. Ever been there? And it's like that lesson was so big for me to learn, I saw it everywhere. In my friends, in the people I worked with, and I was in ministry at the time. I saw it in my board. I saw it in the guys at Costco, not here, but, mainland. I saw it everywhere. I'd be doing something, or I'd be someplace, and somebody would just have to say, I just disagree with you. I don't think that's a good opinion that you have. And it's like, oh my God, here I am again, not good enough. So let me show you, I want to share with you a story that I think explains this behavior. And for me, it was that time in my life where I said, I want to look into this and see what this is about. I want to feel these feelings. I want to delve into them. So imagine that you're walking through the woods, and you see a dog sitting by a tree. And it's a beautiful, cute dog. And you walk up to the dog, and you go, oh, beautiful puppy. And you reach over, and it goes, rah, 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 rah. Yeah? And then you realize that the dog's foot is in a trap. So all of a sudden, your emotions go from being frightened and angry into compassion. So isn't this what we do when we lash out? Isn't this what we are doing when we express our anger? It's because some part of us is hurting, is in a trap. And the opposite is true also. When somebody lashes out at us, is angry, is sad, it's because they're hurting. In a sense, their foot is in a trap. And if we can remember that and have compassion rather than lashing out and trying to hurt them even more or get back at them or be defensive against them, that can help to heal us and to heal them. The N in rain is non-identification. And this is about, again, in the recognition of the emotions, is to realize that those emotions aren't you. They're really not you. They don't define who you are. They don't belong to you. They're not yours. They're just emotions that you are having, emotions that all of us on this planet share. They're just something you're experiencing. They're not you. So instead of saying, I am angry, we could say, I'm experiencing anger right now. And not own the anger. Not to say, this isn't mine. It's just something that I'm experiencing. So we don't have to get upset with ourselves for feeling it or for sharing it. And the more that we become in touch with it, the more we realize that we really don't have to share it. I like, on top of this, I like to think, I'm experiencing anger right now. Well, that's what's up there. Anger is present right now. That's one I like. It's just to imagine, see how that feels. And when you're feeling angry, just to say, interesting, anger is present right now. Wow, that kind of takes the minus or the meanness out of it, doesn't it? It's just present. It's not mine. It's present. So rain is a process. And I invite you to try it. You can't just do it one time. I have to give you a warning. It's not going to just happen if you try it one time. It's not a magic formula for instant change. But it's a formula of a journey that will lead you to happiness, lead you to a place where you can deal with your emotions in a loving and constructive way. It's a way that will lead you to freedom. It will lead you to experiencing less suffering and more joy. A friend of mine was sitting with her dying mother, and her mother was in a coma. And at one point, her mother opened her eyes. And she said, all my life, I thought there was something wrong with me. And she closed her eyes, went back into the coma, and died shortly afterwards. And my friend said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have that be the last thing that I say. I want to work on being more mindful, being more present, recognizing the truth of who I am and living from that place. Embracing our emotions can be difficult. But it's a skill that we can all learn if we practice. So I invite you to give yourself the space to try. So let's do this a little bit in meditation. I invite you to close your eyes. And to breathe into this moment. And to imagine that you can hold yourself in the arms of love. And maybe even to do that, if it feels comfortable, to touch yourself, to hold yourself, to hug yourself. And if it feels safe, right now, to feel an emotion that you have. Maybe one of not being good enough or not being lovable, maybe some sadness or some anger. And imagine that you can embrace it. And accept it, knowing that it's just an emotion. In itself, it has no power. It's just a feeling. And as you embrace, acknowledge, accept, and allow, love it. Like you would a small child who hurt its finger. And you might notice in your body if you feel tension or hurt in your stomach, your shoulders, your chest, your face. Wherever you might feel some pain, and just love those places. Love yourself. Just love yourself. Take a deep breath, breathing in and breathing out. And love yourself. Knowing that these are just emotions. They're not really yours. They're things you've learned and seen others experience. Of themselves, they have no power other than to let you be aware. And to remember that you are love. That you are loved and you are loving. And I invite you in the same way to let go of all of this. Let go of all these words. Imagine that they flow out of your feet and up through your consciousness, out into the world. Breathing in and breathing out. feeling peaceful, loved, powerful, and present. And I invite you to begin to bring your awareness back to this moment. And to open your eyes whenever you're ready. Our affirmation for today is, I embrace the wonder of God that is moving in and through my life and through all life. And I'll end this talk today by reading to you Rumi's poem, The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes in as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each one honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them all at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Namaste.
Where I live, there are rain.